What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my first impressions of Enotria, the last song, a soulslike based on Italian folklore that I've been looking forward to for quite some time since I played a demo back during the last Steam Next Fest. But with that exact thing in mind, if you've also played those previous demos, you might know that, technically speaking, they were leaving a lot to be desired. A lot of, I would say, very textbook Unreal Engine stutter being the main problem it had. But I'm happy to report after playing the full game here, they seem to have addressed quite a bit of that. But before we dive into all that, just to inform you, I am bringing you these first impressions just a little bit before the game's official release date on the 17th for Steam users and the 19th for everyone else, which I am able to do because the developers sent me a review key for the title, but I've been having the floors of my house replaced. So this impressions video is actually coming out like one day after the official embargo ended. You'll have seen some full reviews for this up yesterday, though I will be trying to hit the actual launch date, of course. But back to some of those problems. So as I mentioned right out of the gate, they do seem to have fixed the bulk of the stuttering. It absolutely still happens in a few places at the very least, but it is much, much less than the demo was concerned with. Now, unfortunately for people like myself who insist on playing these games with keyboard and mouse, the PC controls do not seem to be customizable in any way. You're basically stuck with what the game gives you, which is, for people like myself at least, deeply unfortunate. Now, that said, I realize that most people will be playing a game like this with a controller, so it's whatever, but still. Now, I'm hoping that's the bulk of what I run into as I move to review this full thing, but ultimately we shall see. Now, with that said, let's get into the rest of this particular video, starting with a little bit about the game itself. So, as I mentioned, Enotria is based on Italian folklore, and the background to the game, if you will, is shown off through some storytelling at the beginning of it. Essentially, the world itself is made of music. That music made people to hear it. Those people learned to master music to create creation, which became gods, before those gods were overthrown by humanity, which learned the power of shaping reality through the arts and music themselves, with a select few establishing laws of reality via this power, altering the very fabric of reality. However, while everyone in this new reality is stuck to their roles because of the powers at play, our character, known as the Maskless One, is awakened seemingly by what they're calling the Tree of Change in order to set things right. And this puts us on the road to tackling all of the various leaders of the world that have made it this way in order to effectively break the entire world out of this sort of stasis that it finds itself in. And we're going to do that, of course, in classic Souls-like fashion, where we fight anything and everything, rampaging our way across the countryside. But Enotria does do a few unique things that I really enjoy. In fact, one thing it does is, I think, what already feels like a better version of what a previous Souls-like I've played, Deathbound, was trying to do, which is letting you swap loadouts on the fly. So Enotria lets you set up 3 different loadouts, which are like full builds you can customize and swap to on the fly in order to completely change your approach and everything to combat. This is done by changing your character's mask, essentially, which defines their role. But realistically, that is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of progression. There's all sorts of progression. You have your standard kill things for Memoria or souls, spin those at your rest points to level up, but you can also do things like find and upgrade weapons, of course, find those masks, which both change your outfit but also give you a huge bonus. You can assign your character an aspect in addition to this, which will give them a bunch of stat bonuses based on what that aspect is, like say a soldier or a trickster, etc. It's also possible to upgrade what they call the Path of Innovators. This allows you to pick a bunch of perks that you can assign a limited number to any given loadout of yours in order to customize gameplay a little further. What I've been doing in particular has been really leaning into opening up the parry window via these perks, which has been quite a bit of fun. And then there are your mask lines. These are effectively special abilities you can apply to yourself that you can have up to, again, 4 equipped per loadout. And every single one of those things I mentioned just about can also be upgraded in some way, such as your mask lines can be upgraded once you find the anvil, which you'll run into relatively quickly in the first area. It's also possible to upgrade your masks. And those things combined with your level and of course equipment and attribute scaling, etc., can actually have you feeling pretty strong pretty quickly, especially if you have the, I would say, basics of what a Souls-like is all about. But by and large, here for a first impressions video, I'm excited to see just how much I can customize this character and how far I can push that customization, because it seems like a fun system to get invested in. Now, otherwise, I would say this game has a lot of hallmarks of the genre that you'll be aware of, such as a large interconnected area full of secrets and turns, and so far I've really liked the level design, though it does seem to be broken up into a few different hub areas, best I can tell. After I cleared out the first area, which is the area you're seeing here, you open up a few gates and things that you can go to find a fast travel point, which will take you to a couple of different areas, which I think serve as like chapters of the game more or less. But you can fast travel from your rest points to go pretty much anywhere at once. So I wouldn't say it's like fully interconnected world, but it definitely plays around with that idea a lot. Now, something else you'll be doing when you traverse the world is a lot of, I would say, vertical traversal. You can climb up on things quite often, and in fact, you have an ability called an Ardor Burst, something like that, where you sort of stomp the ground with magic, and this, done in certain places, will activate certain things like hidden platforms, etc., and allow you to traverse the environment in new ways. And sometimes you'll find a version of these called a Rift, which will permanently alter the landscape around you, though sometimes these are going to require you to clear a combat encounter in order to do that. By and large, at least by the first area here, if that's anything to go by, the level design and traversing the world feels really great, and that's to say nothing of the, I would say, pretty striking visuals at the same time. Now, combat-wise is where this game can certainly feel a little janky, as these AA Souls-likes tend to do. And while I enjoy the bulk of it, it has, I would say, basically everything you'd expect from these kind of games. Your light, heavy attacks, your combos, your perks and everything, all of that stuff, influencing exactly what your attacks do. Your weapon scaling based off of attributes that you've leveled up. The attributes themselves have different names than normal, as they are talking about like various roles you might have in this ongoing play, but they still do pretty much what you'd expect. Increase your attack, increase your stamina, your health, your defenses, etc. But all of that stuff is done really well. I've enjoyed the mask line special abilities. The loadout system I think is pretty neat, but honestly thus far seems entirely unnecessary. And even the boss fights have seemed pretty cool, at least here in the early game. So for the most part, as far as combat goes, I would say it's pretty standard for this type of genre, and it feels pretty good as a result. Realistically, I would say my only complaint about it right now is that some of the timings can feel a bit off. In some cases, I think they're a little too stringent, such as with dodging or blocking. And I think this is because some of those perks seem to directly affect the timing of these things and how easy they are to pull off by extension. But to wrap up this first impressions video, I would say that so far this game is looking very cool. It seems like a direct improvement from the demo that they had. A lot of things look and feel better. But that's mostly just for the first area of the title, and as I move on to those later chapters, things I'll be curious about is how engaging combat manages to be across the game, if the loadout system ever becomes really important or like an integral piece of the game or simply just an optional one, but that really does seem like the type of mechanic that some bosses could theoretically lean into, especially in regards to like status effects and stuff. But also I'm looking out for any technical problems that might rear their head, because again, the demo was certainly rough in that regard. But so far, as first impressions go, I'm having quite a bit of fun with it, and I'm enjoying the aesthetics at the very least. So I think as long as everything pans out over the course of the title, and the launch price isn't crazy, though I do not have the actual pricing information, at least on Steam, but I believe they're aiming for $50 based on what I've seen on other storefronts. So we'll just have to see if the game manages to justify that or not. But that's pretty much going to do it for this particular video. I certainly hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. Stick around for the review here in a few days. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.